States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll move to roll call. Mr. Bedke?
Present.
I'd like to remind everybody, especially with these masks, we're going to have to get our mics right up close tonight. Mr. Hensley?
Here. Here. Get that one?
Yeah, I heard you. Mr. Shaw? Well, he's zoomed in. Did you get Mr. Esposette?
No, he's not on. We can get him off and see if he comes back. Oh, there he's trying. Check with Roger again, see if he's...
Mr. Shaw, roll call?
Who's not here?
Does he have his speaker turned on?
Yeah, I can hear now.
You can hear now? Okay, I got a
couldn't-
problem with my input.
Okay, I couldn't hear the pledge, but I hear you now.
Okay,
Can you hear us okay?
Yes.
okay, we'll just do it this way.
Okay, we have a quorum then. Did you ever get Rick?
Not yet.
Okay.
Oh, here he is.
Okay. Emergency additions and deletions. We have one deletion. Second reading of policy 4230 will be postponed until the next meeting. We have emergency additions of Eli Henson for the high school boys basketball coach, Randy Myers, third grade summer school teacher, Amy Lambert, fifth and sixth grade summer school teacher, Rebecca Raymer, fourth grade summer school teacher, resignation of Lacey Wise, Manchester Senior High School guidance counselor, business manager statement, MCS student technology handbook, and ECA contract language, and business manager statement. And I would like to remind all our visitors that are watching online, if you have questions, you can email randy_self@mcs.k12.in.us if you have any questions. At this time, we'll have the hearing of patrons.
The business
What?
manager statement. Business manager statement.
Okay.
Okay, after the information released on Friday by the IDOE that gave guidance to fund 100% for online and hybrid students due to COVID-19 related issues, we have determined at this time not to repurpose MIS for next year to lessen the impact of tuition support losses through attrition, cost-saving measures already in place, and utilizing reductions in force. We feel that this will adequate savings at this time to provide us a good direction until we receive more information from the state, depending on possible cuts down the road. We do know the state revenues have been down, and we should expect some guidance from them on the impact to K through 12 schools in the near future. I will detail more of this plan later in the meeting.
Any board comment? Okay, we'll move on to hearing of patrons.
Can I take this off?
Just a second, I mean, it's my card.
Needs to come up and talk and take your mask off for a little bit.
Jeremy, that is fantastic news. I think to everybody in the room that can breathe just a big sigh of relief. So I think that was a great way to start the meeting. And Mr. Self, thank you for posting the policies that they're working on the website. Greatly appreciate that. If you notice, there was 1.8 thousand people who watched the June 3rd meeting. That means that this community wants to know what's going on. And one thing I've wanted is for the board to include the community. And what I see is happening is that the lack of reasonable inclusion goes against many board policies. Policies 1030, 1150, 2000, and 8030 contain these phrases. Carry out the will of the people of the corporation, shall rely on the administration, school staff, students, and the community for providing evidence of the effect of the policies which it has adopted. Develop public understanding, ascertain public attitudes, discover public's aspiration, earn goodwill, respect, and confidence of the public, solicit public advice, involve citizens, promote cooperation between school and community, develop an active partnership, and the superintendent will, prior to making any recommendations to the board, meet with the MTA for purpose of discussing proposed RIFs. Policy 1000 is being considered tonight for a vote. The previous policy said, the board accepts the responsibility for educating students within the district. We believe that responsibility for learning can only be achieved through the joint efforts of our stakeholders, students, parents, faculty, and staff, and patrons. The board will work to ensure that the joint effort will take place. That vision was changed to 3 things: dream, go, or grow, and achieve together. And they are committed to working with the community to promote opportunities for partnership. What happened to take responsibility, work to ensure, and ensure is a lot different than commit. I can be committed to lose weight, but if I don't do anything about it, I'm still this size. And you can only achieve through the joint efforts of our stakeholders. That's taken out. I would like to know exactly when the community will be involved. I know the strategic plan has been sidelined, but I hope that the community will be involved in that. I wish the community had been involved in updating the handbooks, and I hope that next year that can be changed. They're the ones that deliver their students to the school. They know how easy it is to get here, get out. They're the ones that hear their kids. They might actually want stricter rules than what you've got, and they know what rules the kids think are a joke. I wish that you would include parents in that. The MTA should have been informed, and they were not. And I hope as you are talking about reopening and options for education, I want to know, are there doctors, parents, teachers, school personnel, administration, students, and community involved in those discussions? Because each one of those people would bring a different view. My point is a desire for many voices to be heard and be included. At the last board meeting, it was stated that the answer may be sitting right next to us. The answer may never be found if you continue to exclude the community.
Thank you for your comments. You asked 2 questions there. Would you like the superintendent to follow up at a later date about the community involvement in the strategic plan?
Yes.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, that concludes hearing of patrons. We'll move on to consent items. The minutes. I need a motion to approve.
I'll motion to approve.
Dave, all that goes together, it's under.
Yeah, consent.
All of those,
You want to do them all?
that's what consent items.
Okay. So we're going to do the minutes, the regular claims from June 9th, prepaid claims from May 1st to May 31st, payroll claims May 1st, 2020 to May 15th, 2020, and May 29 to 2020. grants. The Project Lead the Way Gateway Program, Innovators and Makers, that's $1,200 from the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. A Next Level Planning Grant of $50,000 from the Indiana Office of Career and Technical Education. And donations, and then personnel. Do you want me to read all these? Okay. We already added the. Okay. So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent items.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Hensley and a second by Mr. Bedke to approve the consent items. All in favor?
Well, I would like to make one note. So these are all critical hires in the time we're cutting costs, because typically I'd ask for a hiring freeze on a lot of things, but I understand school's a little different, so. Okay.
Dave, because we have Reggie and Rick electronically, it needs to be a roll call vote.
Okay, the attorneys asked that we do a roll call vote. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Mr. Shaw?
Actually, I'd like to have a discussion item. We're going to be later voting on, or discussing a possible change to the ECA contracts. Would those, if we were to make a change to the ECA contracts, would that be effective on these new employments?
Yeah, as long as you approve the amendment to the ECA contract tonight as well, then they would be effective on these hires.
Okay, thank you. Aye.
Mr. Esposette?
Aye.
Mr. Bedke?
Aye.
Mr. Hensley? And myself. Motion carries 6-0. Go ahead.
5-0, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry, 5-0. Recommendations for approval. 4.1 was deleted, so we are on P1000, Board of Education, second reading. Any board comments or motion?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Hensley's made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Shaw has seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Esposette?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Bedke?
Aye.
Mr. Hensley?
Yes.
And myself. Passes 5-0. MES student, do we want to, can we do both of these parent handbooks together? Yeah, we'll just do them separate. MES student parent handbook, second reading, 4.3. I'd entertain a motion to approve it.
So moved.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second by Mr. Bedke and Mr. Hensley. Again, it'll be a roll call vote. Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, another discussion. Dave, did you get your question answered about the lunches on these?
I can't hear.
The lunches, did you get your question answered on lunches?
Yeah, I thought that was in the MIS book, but maybe it's in the MES book. I thought we had a discussion a while back, probably last year at this time, about when lunch accounts go negative, that we weren't gonna hand them an alternate lunch so that they could be identified. And I noticed in the book that it still says if their account goes negative in that menu magic, they're gonna be given an alternate lunch. And I know we get donations for the negative lunch fund. Is that something that needs to be corrected?
You did change it last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So what you're
it's,
saying is they're all getting their regular lunch regardless?
okay,
But is the
well,
handbook right? I guess is a question.
It must have been, we changed it last year, so it shouldn't have been.
yeah. I know the MIS book still says when their account goes negative, they get an alternate lunch.
If that wasn't changed prior to this year, I didn't change it because I wasn't privy to that conversation. I can make that adjustment.
So can we approve it, Mark, with that adjustment? Yeah, we have a motion and a second, but we probably, who motioned it?
I did. Just amend the motion to include that change, second it again, and
So I amend the motion to include the change and move approval.
And I second that motion.
Or I amend the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the MES student handbook with the changes. Roll call vote. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, Mr. Esposette?
Approve.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Bedke?
Yes.
Mr. Hensley?
I'll vote yes, but I kind of like Mary's comment about including some people in that the next time we revise, so. Yep.
So noted. I also vote yes. And we'll move on to the MIS student handbook. And that will require the same motion as the last one. It needs to be changed.
So I move, you want me to do, I move approval with the change that Mr. Baldwin talked about.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Bedke?
Yes.
Mr. Hensley?
Yes.
Mr. Esposette?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Junior, senior high school student parent handbook, second reading.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Hensley makes a motion.
I'll second it.
Mr. Bedke seconds. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Esposette?
Approve.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Bedke?
Yes.
Mr. Hensley?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion passes 5-0. Financial savings plan?
Okay, just wanted to update where we feel we're at today based on ever-changing information we get daily and weekly, it seems like. First, I'd like to thank MTA and other people in the community that emailed questions, had comments. The discussions that we had, they were very productive, and we were able to drill down some things even more. And what we know is this is an ever-evolving plan and ever-changing, and we need a starting base, and this is kind of where we feel we need to start at and get us going in the right direction and have a plan in place as we move forward, and then obviously continue to have these conversations throughout the year as needed, as any other state cuts come our way, and continue to talk about these things. The next slide just a reminder, some of the things we talked about last time, the financial shortfalls and where we were at that time. We know there was an enrollment impact. Over the 2 years, we had a reduction in students. At that time, the COVID impact, the uncertainty of how many students may return to the traditional school setting, and obviously that's still out there. And then the state funding impacts, and at that time we had uncertainty on the structure for traditional versus virtual options, and the anticipation of potential education budget cuts next year from the state. The next slide was the loss of 113 students from September 18 to September of 20. And I want to point out this represents a loss of funding over 2 years combined. When we met last time, we used the figure 683, 311, and how we came to that is we had used our current state ADM amount times that 113 to get that dollar amount. As we talked and we looked at it closer, that we know that wasn't represented as correctly as it could be. And so the new figure of 561,766 is where we feel we're at with loss of enrollment over 2 years. MTA would agree with that number as we took the 18-19 education budget and subtracted that from the 19-20 to get that difference. And we know the 19 to 20 enrollment projection is $399,099 potentially there if we don't hit that, if we hit right at 1459. So I did want to clarify that as well. Then on the next slide, again, this was based on at the time what we knew. The state was only going to fund at 85% for virtual, online, hybrid. And so what we did was we took the $5,297,137 and the $2,996,573, added those together, and then we subtracted that from our current student ADM total of $9.1 million to get that negative $822,657. As we looked at that closer as well, we realized that the $822,657 amount, the $9.1 million amount that we currently get for student ADM is based on an enrollment of 1489. And so our projections there with our survey is based off of 1459. So we had potential double count there, and so we wanted to rectify that and correct that. So if the state wouldn't have changed their funding model for this, we would be looking at a $528,804 shortfall for that group of 1459 students, just in student ADM. So I did want to put that out there, and now we know that IDOE has given guidance that these students will be funded at 100% due to COVID reasons for online hybrid. I do want to point out that the legislators still have to take action on this, but I'd like to feel confident that if the IDOE has released that the governor and their office has felt confident that that's going to happen. And so we're going to rely on that. We did push out a second survey over the weekend and just wanted to kind of update the numbers as we had them today. If you remember back the first survey, we had about 60% respond that we would have, they'd like to go back to traditional school. That is now at 80.39%, or 734 students. 102 students would pick the hybrid model at 11.17% of the total. Virtual learning is 68 students, or 7.45%. And then we had an indication of 9 students not returning, just under 1%. So 913 students are a part of this survey, which is I think around 62%, 63% response if you base it off the 1459. So we went from 60 to 80% in traditional schooling from the first survey to the second, and then the hybrid virtual combination from 36% to essentially 18% with that difference. So I did just want to give you an update on what that survey currently looks like as of earlier today. So what are our considerations for cost reduction? As we take a look at a multitude of savings due to the shutdown in other areas, and we know some of these are one-time savings. We know our buses haven't run in 2.5 months, so we do have fuel savings right there for now for this year, but we'll have some of those come back to us with the start of school. Transportation savings and purchasing one bus instead of two, some utility savings. If we change insurance carriers, made an adjustment on that, and I appreciate that pointing out I had a wrong figure there. And so we'll have some insurance savings of about $21,000 if we change carriers. And so that totals $530,387. Then we currently have we would currently not replace 6 current open positions. 3 of those would be classified positions, and 3 of those would be certified positions for $223,849 savings. And then it would be our recommendation to do a reduction in force of 2 certified positions at $125,705. That would get us to a total savings of $879,941. To carry us forward into next year and continue to evolve and evaluate as we go along other saving structures that we may have to look at depending on what the state tells us on budgeting for next year. I might add as well, we will continue to look at any positions that do come open, whether we need to fill those positions or not. And obviously, if they're certified positions, we'll consult MTA with that. And we do have some other outstanding open positions right now that we're evaluating and trying to figure out where are some cost-saving measures that we may be able to do with those positions that are not included in this plan right now.
Would you explain the difference between classified and certified, please?
Sure. Certified staff is our teaching staff, and classified staff would include our paraprofessionals, our bus drivers, our food service people, secretaries, custodians, so that would be considered classified personnel.
Board comments?
Has there any consideration been taken in as far as extra costs next year that social distancing might require?
Yeah, we're still trying to work through that plan on what all that could look like. We do anticipate having some additional costs in hand sanitizer, maybe providing some masks, having those available. There's probably some other hidden costs that we're not thinking of, but we also have the ability to receive some PPE through some grants and some other things that we've registered for some free items for that as well. So we'll continue to do as much of that as we can, and we can also apply for some of that for reimbursement as well.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there are obviously lots of details to still work out as we go through the document that the state released in class, and we're trying to work through that and see how that affects us, and obviously in consultation with many people, and including the county health department who will want to see that plan as well.
But we have, just to be clear, we have not included a figure at all for those extra costs?
No, we have not with this particular plan.
Okay.
So we only cut one of the 2 buses that was budgeted, did I hear correct?
Yes, we had previously ordered that bus back in January and already had it PO'd and out. And then when we received the grant, a $20,000 grant to help pay for that bus, To receive that grant, we had to take the bus, and that's why we ordered it in January to have all of that set up. So we had budgeted $220,000 to purchase 2 buses. We're gonna be able to get the 1 bus for $90,000, so there'll be $130,000 that we will not spend out of that transportation.
So we're still using the grant then?
Yes, we'll still use the grant. And then next year, as we look to budget, obviously, that'll be one of the considerations. Do we just purchase 1 bus or no buses? And those are all things that obviously we'll have to gauge depending on what the state tells us as well.
I'd just like to say it's been a bit of a tumultuous couple weeks here, you know, and it's good to see that you guys got together, you know, talked, and we can do this. And to Mary's point, there's a reason, you know, we got to come together. This is our community, you know, and it seems like as soon as there's an edge for conflict, it happens. And there's a lot of uncertainty out there. So people, you know, I appreciate all the comments and the emails too, and we do talk, and we're looking for kind of the best way out of this as things change. And I'm going to say there's a reason to involve everybody, and that's 2 reasons. Number 1, you always get the best solution, and number 2, they own it. You know, and I think that goes a long way with communication, and as a board and as an administration, we're aware of that. You know, so I think as we go along here, it's going to be very critical that we actually put a strategic plan together, and we look for growth opportunities, because I'm going to tell you, I've been on the board a little more than a year now, and it's this event, this event, this event, we're going the wrong way. So everybody in this community is going to have to come together and work on this. And it also includes our leadership in town. You know, the school is not the only one responsible for declining students. So it's not going to be just the school and the people and the teachers. It's got to be the community. We've got to work with the business. We got to get a solid plan for the future together to grow our enrollment versus going the other way. So that's, you know, I deeply appreciate MPA and administration coming together, because we don't, you know, we don't need all this conflict all the time. You know, it's stressful on people. It causes disease. You know, you end up losing good people over this stuff. So that'd be my only comment on this whole thing. So.
Okay, this was a recommendation for approval. Are you done, Mr. Markham?
Yes.
We have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
To be clear, we're making a motion to approve the financial savings plan presented.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the financial savings plan. Any further discussion? Did we lose Mr. Esposito?
Yeah, we lost him. I'll see if he comes back here in a minute.
Okay, I guess we'll call for a vote. There's no further comment. Roll call vote, Mr. Shaw?
No.
Mr. Bedke?
Yes.
What'd he say?
He said no. Mr. Bedke said yes. Mr. Hensley?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito? We're voting on the financial plan. The roll call vote, since you're not here and you can't see.
Yes, without.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I think he said no.
Well, I feel like I'm going to abstain at this point.
Okay, we have an abstain, and I'm going to vote no. So we have 2 yeses, 2 nos, and an abstention.
Well, let's have a discussion then. We should have did that before the vote. What do you guys want?
I asked for comments.
Okay.
Mr. Shaw?
Yeah, it's kind of hard for me to get my head around this one. I haven't had a lot of time to
I can't either.
digest it.
Can you turn him up?
Let me see what I can do. problems with the audio through the Zoom. I'm not sure where it is.
Hang on just a second, Mr. Shaw. We're having trouble hearing you.
Can you talk again? How's that?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear him
Yeah,
now.
it's better.
I'll try to speak up. Yeah, I've not had a lot of time to look over this plan. I guess I do appreciate everybody's work that's gone into it. I'm not sure that there's enough here. I'd kind of like to include some more people in this discussion.
Well, and I think part of this is, I had a conversation with Jeremy about a couple things on my mind too, so I think, you know, we're voting on this plan, but I don't think this plan is done, you know? So I think there's other opportunities that we're gonna look at in the future, so I'll be honest with you, I'm a little confused. You know, this looks like a part that I can kind of go with. There are other things I have in mind too, so I just want to have a discussion and just see where, you know, where everybody is, so. So you want more time to review it? Or is there anything in particular you want?
Are you trying to meet Mike?
Yeah, or anyone, you know, we just voted and it didn't go, so.
Yeah, I mean, there's some more stuff I guess I'd like to see on here as well. I'd like to see, number one, I'd like to see the board take a cut. How do you guys feel about that?
I couldn't hear him.
What?
I think you said board take a cut, is that what you said?
That's right.
Yeah, we can make a motion on that though, I'd go for that.
I'd like to add that to this list.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. So I guess I'm gonna ask the question unless somebody else, Bryce, do you have a question?
Well, I was in agreement with Mike in that I think this is a good jumping off point. I'm not sure it's the end point, like Jeremy just said earlier, that it's evolving and that it gives us the fluidity to make adjustments as we go. Certainly feels much better than a couple of weeks ago discussion, and I thought there was some good compromise with the administrators and the MTA, and so, you know, I feel comfortable with this as a good jumping off point, was the reason why I voted yes.
Is the MTA in agreement with this plan?
We are in agreement with almost all of it, with most of it. We differed on whether or not it's needed to RIF the two filled positions. That's the only area where we were in disagreement, I think, right now.
Okay.
Thank you. So, my question to Jeremy and Dr. Grimeau, all we really have to do tonight is make whatever RIFs need to be done. If we want them to take more time, is that a true statement?
That's correct. We need to meet the July 1st deadline. So if we're going to RIF any staff, then we need to do it as soon as possible so they have an opportunity to seek other employment if they want to do that.
Just for clarification, Dr. Grimeau, so 6 of these positions are not currently filled.
That's correct. They were either resignations or retirements of some
So
sort.
the RIF there is a position, not a staff. Is that still a July 1st deadline? Does that make sense?
I'm confused at what you're saying.
So we're not.
You mean if we want to eliminate the position?
We're eliminating the position in essence, so there's no deadline on that elimination, though, or is there?
I don't believe so. I think at one point, we just have to bring it to a vote to eliminate that down the road. We did that last year, and I don't remember what position it was, but yeah, it's really about giving notice to anybody, a RIF is someone that can potentially be pulled back in based on the numbers. So, there is a possibility they would end up coming back. We don't know.
Want to be my hope, we could salvage those 2 filled positions, find another savings in the future. I mean, is there a way we can call this Part A and then do a Part B?
Well, I think it's going to always be evolving, just like Mr. Markham said. I mean, we have been working on cost savings since I arrived last June. So, absolutely. I mean, we continue to try to put things in place. So, I don't know why you can't continue to do that throughout the year. Because there's going to be things that people come up with. In fact, we actually have, and I was going to tell everybody this at the end, but we actually put a place on our website now under the About Us and then the MCS Stay Informed tab. And we're asking for input on ideas of what you would like to see or what you feel like we can cut, those kind of things. So I do believe it's always going to be evolving based on our situation. And we really, honestly, there's still unknowns. There's unknowns about what the state is going to do in reference to cuts to our funding. So that's still out there, and it's still, we're still waiting to hear from the legislators and the governor on what that looks like.
Well, it appears that we're short on money and we're short on time. And we're up against a legal deadline. And we've all heard a lot of comments and seen a lot of good ideas, and this seems like it's too fast. That's why I voted no. So I'm just kind of wondering if maybe we shouldn't get a recommendation to cover ourselves on the number of RIFs that we need to do in addition to the ones that are open, and spend the time between now and next board meeting to come up with some more cost-cutting ideas, so maybe we don't have to RIF anybody. Maybe we can call everybody back. This whole thing popped up 2 weeks ago, and I mean, I've seen 100 different ideas, but we just haven't had time to act on them. And I think we just need to kind of lift our foot off the accelerator here and take a breath.
The next meeting's when?
July 14th?
July 14th, which is after the deadline to RIF.
Well, I'm not gonna sit here all night, so I'm gonna make the motion to do the RIF, and then we'll move on. So.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
So in other words, accept the plan as is.
Could you clarify your motion, please?
No, I'm gonna say, let's do what we need to tonight, and then we need to meet and get together and get this worked out, so.
Okay, so your motion.
I'm about at my limit with all this stuff. I'm gonna be quite frank with you.
Okay, well, you made a motion. I'd just like you to clarify exactly, do you have a number of RIFs that you want?
Exactly what's in this plan. Let's at least get that one.
I don't know which plan you're referring to. There's been 3 of them.
That one.
Okay, so you're asking to do 2 RIFs only?
I'm asking to do the RIF, I'm making a motion to do the RIF part at least in this, because we need to before July 1st. The next meeting's July 15th. You can't wait to RIF on
Okay.
July 15th.
Okay, so everybody's clear. Mr. Hensley has made a motion to RIF the 2 people out of this plan. Those would be certified, Dr. Grewell?
The 8 positions, Dave, that we need to RIF, that they brought up to RIF.
I want to make sure we get this terminology
Then if
right.
we can, and then they're ripped. Then if we can find a way to save those people, we save those people. But we
Okay.
gotta do what's legally obligated tonight.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Esposette and Mr. Shaw, can you hear us?
I can.
I'll second the motion to RIF then. Any further discussion?
Yeah, so my question is, what's different about this than what approving the whole thing?
I don't know, but I'm not gonna sit here all night looking at each other. We're trying to figure it out. This should have been figured out before we're sitting in this meeting, so.
I guess to answer your question, it gives us more time to look at more options, more savings, not necessarily more cuts, more savings across the board to try and keep from riffing those two people was the end goal. I mean, this whole thing happened 2 weeks ago.
I agree with you. I don't want to rip those two people either, but we just have a motion to rip them because we have a deadline. And then we're gonna go back and look at more cost savings to bring them back, which we're gonna do anyway.
Except if we voted on that one, that's what we're stuck with. Now we got other things that we can add to it and bring it back for the, hopefully we'll have a whole board here.
We can always look for cost saving opportunities. We're not stuck with that.
Yeah,
We can add to the cost savings of it.
cost savings, as far as other than employees, you can do that anytime, when we have been doing that. So I think that's what you're saying, isn't it, Mr. Bedke?
Yes.
Okay. But as far as if it's an employee issue, then we have to do that now because of the deadline we're given by the
And that's to
legislature.
Mr. Hensley's point.
Right.
All we really legally have to do tonight is do the riffs and then go back to the table and figure out how we can save some more money and keep from having to riff two people. So we got a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I don't wanna go around him here either. I guess, guys, what I'm looking at is I see the teachers taking a big hit here, and I don't see it in other areas. And I think it's only fair that everybody gives a little bit in this situation.
Well, and I agree with you, Raju, and that's my discussion with Jeremy and Dr. Gameau was, what are we doing administration-wise? Because usually when you cut value adders, you kind of look at administration at the same time. We had that discussion that things are up in the air, you know? But I think this is, this is the ignorance of continuous improvement in this industry in the whole part of, it never ends, right? It isn't like we're gonna do this and we're gonna quit trying to improve, and that's the problem. You guys don't have these skill sets. I could sit here in one day with this group here and we could come up with a value stream map and come up with a strategic plan that would roll us about 1.5 years. Instead, we sit here and time again run into conflict because of communication problems, people aren't involved, So we're gonna have to start approaching this in the right way and use some tools that are used in industry. And by the way, business is our industry partners, and they use this stuff in town. So I'm not too sure why, we gotta do it different in education, or we can't learn to do things differently in education. And I'm gonna keep pounding, every meeting we're gonna have, I'm gonna pound that, because I'm tired of this reactivity, and then we can't even go on the same page. How can you lead, when everybody's not on the same page? So tonight, we gotta, just because we riff teachers doesn't mean we're gonna eliminate them, right? Am I correct about that?
That is correct.
So there's a legal obligation we have to meet tonight, So if you guys wanna add something, I made a motion to at least do that legal obligation. If you guys wanna add something to this plan, then we can add it tonight and we can vote on it. But in no way is this the end of what we're gonna do in the school system, because we're going the wrong way and we're gonna start growing. Before we repurpose a building, we're gonna have a purpose for it, so.
Well, Mike, I guess would you be willing to add, again, I'm,
I'll add one riff on administrator. Would that help you?
how's that?
If we added one riff to an administrator, would that help you?
Yeah, that would help me. And I would add on there the cuts to the board. If you combine all that together, I can vote for it.
What do we want to do? 10, 25%? 50% board pay?
Well, that'd be a separate motion. You have a motion on the table, and we have a second to riff, so we've had the discussion.
Okay. I want to change my motion. I want to make a motion to riff teachers, put one admin riff into that 8 teacher riff, and to reduce board pay by 25%.
How about 10?
Okay, 10%. Is
Okay.
that good with you, Raju?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we got a motion, a modified motion and a second. Does anybody need to hear the motion again? Okay, roll call vote. Mr. Estefan?
Hold on.
Discussion.
Can you read, I'm kind of in and out. Can you restate the motion, please?
Okay, Mr. Hensley, go ahead and read your motion again, so I don't mess it up.
I'd like to make a motion, instead of the financial plan, we riff 8 teachers, 1 admin, cut board pay by 10%.
Did you get that, Mr. Esposito?
Got it.
And Mr. Shaw seconded the motion. Do you have any comment?
No.
Are you including the teachers in that as well?
I'm just saying what you guys have on this sheet that you agreed to riff, so.
But you're adding an admin and you're adding
No, I added 1 admin.
One admin and your 10% cut is what you were saying, right?
And the riff that we need to do currently that MTA agrees to.
Which was, well,
The 6 unfilled positions?
right. So it's the plan as presented with 1 admin and a 10% cut from the board.
Yeah, I could go for that.
That's how I understood it. If I'm wrong, correct me, but
Yeah, I don't think that's what his motion was. We weren't approving this plan tonight. What we were approving was riffing the teachers in this plan, the 6 unfilled positions, the 2 riffs, an admin riff, and a 10% board pay cut was the motion that was made and seconded.
Is admin the right term?
I believe so.
yeah, it could be any administrative position.
Okay, if there's no other further comment, I'm gonna do the roll
I
call
have further
vote.
comment.
Okay, go ahead.
I think it's ironic that we criticize the quick decisions, and I haven't had time to look at this, and then all of a sudden, we put a motion on the table to, now we're gonna go to an administrator, and we add to, I mean, if we're gonna discuss it, let's discuss it. And take time. I mean, we can't be critical of last-minute additions. You know, these guys have been working on this for 2.5, or however long, and then tonight, in a matter of 2 minutes, we add another riff that nobody's had any time to think about and discuss. I think that's,
I've thought about it a lot.
well, it's the first time I've heard it.
And we actually had administrative riff in that plan if we repurposed MIS, but because it went back and we weren't offering that, that's one of the reasons. But we do have an open admin position, and we were certainly looking at that. But we have to consider the number of students in the junior, senior high, the supervision involved, and everything else.
Well, I'm looking at it like this, Bryce. We're talking about an online program. We got an Apex program. We got a Squire Academy program. We got 3 buildings. How many admin do we have?
We have 4 buildings.
Well,
I think this is all great discussion, but we have a motion on the table to do what we legally need to do tonight. And then we have a whole nother month that we can work on this plan to try and save all these jobs. It's our community, and I think we all need to work together. And this got dropped on us, and the numbers keep changing, and I just feel like, I guess I'm gonna go along with this trend. This just feels reactive to me, you know? So let's do what we legally need to do.
So we're gonna react and add more to it? I mean, if you talk about reacting, we're gonna react and add more to it then.
I got this plan last night at 10 o'clock.
And we got the additional RIF 2 minutes ago.
Okay?
Well, talk it out then.
All we're saying is we want to do the risks because they're required by law. It doesn't mean we're getting rid of anybody. I want to make this real clear. It doesn't mean, the plan is to buy some time to get from now to July 14th so we can look at some more cost-saving measures and try to keep everybody. That's my point.
And I agree with that.
Okay, so what's the problem with the motion then?
The problem I have with the motion is we added to it, more than what was on the plan. So you're complaining we got the plan last night, and now we're adding to it 2 minutes ago.
Dr. Grimaud just said that in the plan there was an administrator position open.
Well, we all know.
Originally, yes.
Right,
With the first proposal, there was.
so it's not new.
Well, it is with this, because we will be putting MIS back in place, so yes, this would be new.
All right, so the motion was made to pass it as is, what they presented, and it failed. So now there's a new motion.
And a second.
Let's vote on it then.
Randy, are you having any luck getting Mr. Esposito back?
I texted him, I'm waiting on it. I think he's traveling, so he may have lost it.
All right, well, we're just gonna have to move along. We've been here long enough then.
Here he is. Got him.
You say you got him?
Yep.
Are you back, Rick?
Should be there now.
Are you back, Rick?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, we got a motion on the table to RIF the 6 open positions, 2 extra staff, 2 extra RIFs besides the 6 open.
Certified.
An administrator position, RIF, and a 10% board pay cut. And I'm going to start the roll call vote with you, unless you have any questions.
Yeah, I really apologize. I'm kind of in and out. So the amendment or the motion is what was previously on the table plus administrator plus board member pay cut. Is that correct?
Right, 10% board member pay cut. We're going to RIF 1 administrator. We're going to RIF 2 teachers plus the 6 that were in the plan that are currently unfilled.
Yeah, I'm down.
I couldn't hear him. You say you're voting no?
Yes. Vote is no.
Okay. Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Bedke?
No.
Mr. Hensley?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries 3-2. And I apologize. I missed something on the agenda here that was supposed to be after the business manager statement. What does the board want to do? Do we want to go through these discussion information things, or do we want to come to the ECA contract language clause? Anybody have a preference?
What is it again?
We got I missed the student technology handbook, and I missed the ECA contract language. I skipped from business manager statement to hearing of patrons. I apologize.
I just circled back.
Okay, Manchester Community Schools Student Technology Handbook.
Dave, I think you're actually on 4.7. Commercial and liability insurance,
Right, but we had it with the Student Technology Handbook was up
which is
here
down
under-
at 5.5 and 5.6.
Okay, so you want to do it this way? That's fine.
Yeah, it's already on the agenda.
All right.
It's already
let's-
been included.
All right, discussion, recommendation for approval is commercial and liability insurance. I believe that's Mr. Markham.
Yeah, provided you with the information on our current commercial and liability insurance carrier, Liberty Mutual, with what our current rate was. Next year to renew with them would be an increase of $21,520. We quoted this out and received 2 additional quotes. A third vendor did not submit their final quote. They felt like they probably couldn't beat it. So it would be my recommendation that we change our commercial and liability insurance carrier to Downey EMC. They came in at $111,062 as opposed to having to pay $154,466 if we renewed with Liberty Mutual for next year. So that would be my recommendation. Our individual that quoted these for us and works with us on this said that everything in this plan is what we have with Liberty Mutual. Same coverages and everything.
Any questions from the board?
I'll make a motion to accept.
We have a motion to accept Mr. Markham's recommendation to change the insurance carrier. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Mr. Shaw seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Bedke?
Yes.
Mr. Hensley?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Espacet?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. Outside agency working relationship, first reading, administrative guideline 8005.
Yes, this is if we are choosing to work with anybody from the outside that we don't have a memorandum of understanding with. For example, if area program decides to hire an outside person to fill in a position and come to work with us, it's just guidelines on what they would do when they are with us. And so they would sign this document and follow those procedures that we have laid out there. Any questions on that?
I have one.
Okay.
Would we run them, because they're going to be in the building, would we run them through the Raptor system when they showed up for work?
Well, that would have to be done before they were even hired, so yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Nope, motion to accept.
That's a first reading.
Oh, it is,
Just
okay.
a
Yeah.
first reading.
5.2, policy 8010, advertisement on school property, first reading.
Yeah, this one is just about what we would do with advertisements, but we found there's a little bit of a conflict, so I'm going to take that one back. The first 2 sentences I feel like conflict with each other. We read through them, but I would definitely like to take that back to the committee and just look at that again.
All right. 5.3, policy 8020, equal opportunity employer, first reading.
Yeah, this is just a standard equal opportunity employer statement that we did not have in our policies. Any questions?
Okay, 5.5, Student Technology Handbook, first reading.
You skipped policy 3240.
Oh, did I miss one? So I'm sorry.
Yes.
Policy 3240, gifts to and solicitations by staff, first reading.
Yes, this was just a recommended policy from ISBA on how employees should accept or not accept gifts and kind of the parameters set before them. Anybody have any questions about that one? It's pretty simple. Okay.
Okay, 5.5, MCS Student Technology Handbook, first reading.
There's only a couple changes and it's all the way down, and I believe Mr. Miller is on Zoom. If you have questions. It's highlighted, it's coming. Here you go.
Hi guys,
Hi.
I can hear you guys, can you hear me? Just quickly, a couple changes, you can see there 4B, hang on here, I got it till later. Yep, there you go. One of the things there, 4B, since we're adding K through 3, we'll be taking home devices. They will be charged the same device fee as the rest of the grades. So that's one change. And then the other 3 changes are just updated prices for replacement costs. The Chromebooks, of course, are a year old, so a little less expensive. Chargers, we purchased those from a different source, so those are half the price. They went down from 65 to 35. And the shelves, because we're not buying in large quantities of 1,200, but only 100 or 150 at a time, have went up to $30 each. And that's really the only changes this year. Any questions?
I guess my question would be actually for Dr. Rameau or for Jeremy. Is this what we charge every student, or do they get a, like, free and reduced lunch? Is there a reduced book fee for those students?
Any student that is free and reduced does have a reduced book fee.
Thank you. Any other board questions? Yeah, this is a first reading, so I guess we move to the next one. Thanks, Tony.
You're welcome, guys. I'll hang on if need be.
Randy, have you gotten any questions via email?
I have one I'll let you repeat. This is probably to Jeremy. How does the approximately $192,000 MCS received from the Indiana CARES Act factor into the proposal? I don't know if you can.
Those monies are not factored into this proposal as a savings at this time, and we are still sorting out how to utilize those funds with our admin team as we look at our reentry and how we might utilize them. So, Dr. Rameau, if you have any
Yeah,
more.
there's just going to be a lot of extra costs at this point. We don't know what they are. Cleaning supplies, technology. I mean, we've got some online pieces that we're trying to do. So we're just trying to figure out don't want to try to spend that money without knowing what the needs are, and that's why we're trying to work through that process now. It would just be something that would be one-time cost. It would not be something you would want to fund a position or something like that with.
Okay, 5.6, ECA contract language.
This is what the board had asked to be included on an ECA contract. Mr. France put this together for you. So if you have any questions, Mr. France is here.
Mr. France, you made some comments in your email when you sent this to the board. Could you explain that it doesn't violate what it said in your email about the MTA contract and so on and so forth?
It was just the amount of time I took to put this together. It doesn't seem like it's all that complicated, but taking into account the collective bargaining agreement with MTA and then Indiana's wage payment statutes, because the ECA contracts are for a salary rather than a stipend, I just took all that into consideration.
So this is the version where it says shall. We'd also talked about making that shall or may, and I would then leave that up to the board at the time to make that decision.
Yes, I didn't know which version would be presented, but what Mr. Shaw is talking about is this version requires the pay shall stop, but the board wanted it at the board's discretion. So replace the word shall, and I think the third line maybe, with the word may.
Any questions?
So just to be clear, this allows us to make a decision. So if we have COVID-20 and some sports or other extracurricular activity has not started, let's say that January 1, we shut everything down, it allows us to make a decision about spring activities.
Depending on how IHSAA has provided a notice about what they're doing with the sports season or what the DOE has said about sports seasons, yes.
Right. But we could, like this year, I just want to be clear, I thought we did the right thing this year by paying our teachers and all the coaches. I think it's important to understand that these extracurricular activities are not, I know what the Indiana High School Association says about when a season starts and when it ends. That's not really reality for those who are really involved with their team and with their, whether Science Olympiad or whatever. And so I want to make sure that we leave ourselves the ability to continue to support all of our teachers and coaches and pay them for the job that they do. And this allows us to do that, correct?
Yes.
With wide latitude, so like prorate or just pay them flat out or whatever, so.
Any other questions? To be clear, this just gives this board, for you in the audience, this just gives this board and boards after us, if COVID flares up again, it gives us the option to make decisions to save money. Nobody wants to beat anybody out of a contract amount, but with the financial situation that we're looking at, last month we spent $45,000 paying coaches because we were contractually obligated, so we could get 20% into a season and the state shuts us down again. Fall and winter sports is around $180,000. So that's pretty big money. And all this is saying is it gives this board and other boards the opportunity to prorate or suspend. Maybe they just suspend
Or pay it.
Or pay it.
It gives us the latitude to make a decision.
If we're flush with cash and we feel like it's the right thing to do, that's up to the board in the future. All this does is give us the opportunity to be flexible. Did you make a motion?
No, not yet, but do we need to vote on this?
Yeah, if we
I'll
want to
make a
pass.
motion.
You can vote on it, yes, if you choose to do that.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to add this.
With the may, to be clear.
Correct.
Yeah, with the modification of the shall to may. Is that correct?
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. France. Okay, Rick's back. Are you there, Rick?
Yeah, I am, but once again, I wasn't privy to all the conversation, so I'm just going to abstain. Sorry.
Okay, well, it's about the ECA contract that gives us the opportunity for the board to vote to suspend, modify, prorate, or pay ECA contracts. Mr. Hensley made a motion, Mr. Shaw seconded. Do you still want to abstain, or do you want to vote?
I'm gonna leave it as an abstention again, with apologies.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Bedke?
Yeah.
Mr. Hensley?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So we have a 4 and 1 abstention. Do we want to hear the patrons now, Teresa, or do we want to do the legislative update?
No, I usually do the hearing of patrons right now.
Okay, at this time, we'll open up hearing of patrons.
MTA will submit the language just passed to ISGA to get feedback. I'm not an expert in this area at all. Is it on? Okay. You know, something like this is another thing that it would be good to share in advance so that you don't have to go back and correct things if something is done incorrectly. Not that I don't respect Mr. France's decision. He's usually correct on most things. So on behalf of MTA, I do want to thank Teresa and Jeremy for their work. You know, the past 2 weeks have been very productive, and I know that you can see the amount of changes that have been made, and that can be frustrating, but we appreciate that, you know, we've had an open back and forth together, and we thank you for that. I think it's important for everyone to understand, you know, both here right tonight and in the community, that we are not out of the woods yet. Over the next year, as we work to, you know, find the savings that we need to and formulate a plan, you know, we hope that this process will continue to be open as has been talked about tonight, and not only allow, you know, MTA and staff, but also the community, you know, as you've indicated. Something educators often struggle with is asking for help. And I think that often projects up to the top levels in our schools. No one can know what you need help or that you need help unless you ask for it. No one can know you need help or what you need help with unless you ask for it. The schools in this community have been there for this community time and time again, and their impact has never been clearer than now after this last spring. We need the community's help now as we make the changes that we need to make to meet the needs of the community, which unfortunately right now means getting smaller as a district. Possible education cuts are being discussed this week at the state level. What everyone needs to understand is we as a state have already been cut. We just got back to 2008 funding levels this year. Education in Indiana has been cut for 12 years. So I hope you understand when teachers around the state and our community say enough is enough. Are we really going to sacrifice educating students and the work of educators again? We need the community's support to ask this as loudly and as widely as possible and to mitigate any impacts of cuts that may come. And that may mean our community doing more. Teachers are back in classrooms on August 10th and students on August 12th. There is an incredible amount of work to do, and 8 weeks to prepare for safely getting back to learning and moving forward in a very different world than we were in 6 months ago. And I know that there are many meetings already scheduled with teachers and administrators and staff in the school buildings, and the school board's going to have a lot of stuff to discuss in July, along with financial impacts. But we need the community support to get our students back in the classroom safely and to be able to start the school year and get back to the business of educating students. So community, we need you to step up and be there for your schools.
Very well said, Mr. Huber. Anyone else? Mr. Self has a couple emails.
Trip over my own course here. I've got an email here question from Jody Sarver. In regards to the ECA contract language, quotes, except for work already done, what about the coaches who put in work all year long towards the program? A good coach does not simply work during the IHSAA scheduled season.
I guess my understanding, Jeremy, correct me if I'm wrong, coaches are paid throughout the whole year. Are they not?
Not anymore.
In the past, certified staff teachers have been paid throughout the year over 26 pays for any of their ECA work that they do. Lay coaches are not. They're paid twice during the beginning of their season and one towards the end. It is our wish to look at changing that for certified staff to do the same and pay them either once or twice over the course of their season.
Okay. Then that would just require coaches to kind of keep track of their time so that if something were to happen to, submit that to the school because it is salary. If they perform the work, we'd have to pay them for it.
And that was the purpose of some of the language in there, that we could actually prorate what they've done through the season and pay them versus just saying we're not going to pay them if school's closed or something. So it wasn't all cut and pay. It was all being able to do that.
And he's listening, but he's delayed, so the feed is delayed.
What's the next one?
I've got another question here. It's just how soon will teachers find out if they've been RIF'd? Do they have to wait till July 1st, or will we be notifying them sooner?
We are hoping to get those people contacted tomorrow. That's the goal. At the very latest would be, Thursday, so just depends on how soon we can get a hold of them.
Jody's texting me. I don't know if he wants to zoom in or not. Maybe.
Is there anybody else, Mr. Self?
No, that was all.
Do you want to just move on until we can get him?
Okay, we can do that. Mr. Hensley, do you have a?
Oh, I'm
I'm sorry.
I didn't see you walk up there.
That's
I didn't see
okay,
you.
I popped up. I'm Robin Messer, I'm a 5th grade teacher at MIS, and I guess I'm asking for clarification from the board. Is the closing of MIS then off the table? Or is that something that you could come back to on July 15th and tell us that we're closing the building and having to move?
Personally, I'm looking to keep it off the table unless something drastically would happen that would have to. Is that?
And that was our recommendation as well.
I know it was, and I do want to express appreciation for Dr. Grimeau and Mr. Markham working with MTA. I do feel like we made a lot of progress. So yeah, it goes a long way. We breathe a huge sigh of relief, realizing that we won't be closing. I just hope that that's the case and we're not going to come back July 15th and be told in a month we have to move.
Thank you.
Just a quick comment. We never talked about closing the building. It's repurposing the building, okay? And I don't support trying to do that. As a board member, I don't support trying to do that this year. I just don't think it's a reachable goal, but I'm only one person, he's only one, but we don't like the word close because that's not what we're doing.
Well, and my comment is that I believe it serves a purpose right now, so.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay. All right, Mr. Hensley, would you like to do a legislative update?
Well, I guess the only, there's a lot going on, but probably everybody's seen the Supreme Court ruling, all right? So Mark kind of told us about that, and it's in the news. So there's other things we'll, again, I kind of like what you said, Mr. Hubert. We're a community, we're all kind of in this together. So we gotta, when we do have issues, we need to kind of work through them. So it's hard telling what's going to happen on the budget. We all know they ask them to cut it 10 to 15%. So if now's the time, if you want to be making phone calls, to the right folks about budget cuts to education, because it's that important, I think. Right? I mean, education is economic development in my book. So we as citizens, you got everybody in this town, in this community and county has the right to call your legislator, and let them know how you feel. So I'm hoping that people are going to do that, so, and we're in, you've seen what's happened to our economy. So, there's hard decisions to be made coming in the future. So.
Thank you, Mr. Hensley. Heartland update, some upbeat news. One of our own, Sarah Metzger, completed her CDL certification. Mr. Flack was part of the board down there when they instituted this program, and we actually had 8 students apply. We had 7 who graduated, but the 8th had some impairments that didn't allow that student to get his permit, but all 7 graduated. The good news is all the paint's still on the truck and they all got their certifications. Last night I attended the 1324 drive-in graduation. It was very well attended. The kids seemed to like it. I know I liked it. I think David Brace did an excellent job of putting that movie. I mean, it was a timeline. You could actually see the difference in the kids. I guess teachers probably see this, but I'm not used to it. You could see them at the beginning of the year and see them at the end of the year. It was kind of remarkable, even at that age, how much they changed. And I guess I really liked it because of the music. They were playing the Beatles and the Temptations. David Brace did a really nice job. And it is online on the Heartland website if anybody would like to go on there and look at it. Now we're at the superintendent's comments.
I would just like to say, thank you to the staff, the administrators, the MTA, the patrons, and the board just for all of their commitment to making sure that MCS is financially responsible. I understand that discussing these topics are not necessarily easy ones for any one of us when we discuss building changes, program changes. It's not anything that any of us like, but I do appreciate you staying engaged and participating in those conversations. We do appreciate all those groups that have come together that have had input to head the challenges right on. And we have many more ahead of us, like what was just shared. We're not done yet, but we've got to keep moving forward. And I'm going to state again that on our website, if you would please go to About Us, MCS, stay informed. You can make any comments there that you want, that you feel like will help us out. In any cost-saving measures, we'll definitely take a look at those and see if there's anything that's viable there. That your input is just very important to us. It's valuable. We do appreciate it. I just ask that you stay positive throughout the whole thing, because this is not easy conversations. I know that. And I just appreciate that your willingness to sit down at the table and talk about them. So thank you. Hopefully we can continue on from here. Appreciate it.
I'm gonna drop off the agenda here for just a second and offer Mr. Markham the opportunity to make any comments if you'd like to. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but.
No, I'm good. Again, just echoing, thanks for the communication and working together. And like we said, this is a ever-changing plan and always evolving, and it'll continue to be so.
School board comments?
Hey, can I have one here? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Rick. Go ahead.
Okay, and my apologies that this was covered earlier, but it's a question about risk and what criteria is used to bring back a teacher and what criteria is used to bring back an administrator.
Well, it's just going to be based on enrollment, and you'd look at those positions based on the enrollment in those areas, depending on what position it is.
Okay, it seems a little more challenging with an administrator.
Yes, I agree.
And that seems like we potentially just eliminated a position unless there's a clear criteria to bring a position back. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that, and then give, I believe if I know Robert's rules, somebody on the prevailing side of that vote could bring it back up for reconsideration if they were concerned.
I don't see any reason why someone couldn't do that.
Any other board comments? Are you done, Rick? I'm sorry.
Yeah, as long as people are, I just want to make that point. To be clear, I don't know how you bring that position back, or I don't know. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. And maybe it can be brought back, but I don't know what determination you use to bring that back. And that, it just seemed really quick, like maybe a little reactive in my opinion. So I'm hopeful that somebody would bring it back up for reconsideration, but I wanted to get that in before the meeting was adjourned.
Yeah, and I guess I would just add that the end goal is to bring everybody back to just, online registration. I would like to put that out there for the public. Is supposed to be ready to fly on July the 6th. We need your input. We're making big decisions here based on student enrollment, so, the more solid numbers we have, the easier this decision becomes. And like I said, the end goal, I'm sure everybody sitting in this room, is not to RIF anybody. What we took was legal steps in order to buy us some time till July 14th, when our next board meeting is, to try and come up with some more ideas so that we don't have to RIF anybody. We may end up having to leave some positions open, but hopefully we don't have to affect any more lives. That was the whole process here, was to try and stay legal and try to get more input to make a decision based on good numbers. And I'll just add one more thing. I wish Mr. Flack was here, because he says it a lot better than I do. This isn't a Manchester Community Schools problem. This problem's all over the state. Declining enrollment, it's a community problem. And we got an awful lot of resources sitting in this room. And I said it last meeting, and I'm gonna keep saying it. I think we all need to sit down at the same table and put all the ideas on the table and figure out what works and what doesn't work. And I think if we do that, I think the community grows together, and we start, cream rises to the top. We start to get better. Anybody else?
So I have a question about the RIFs also on the administrator position. So we have an administrator position open, I assume, with Mr. Bisher resigning.
That's correct.
So, Dr. Grimaud, who do you make the decision that, who makes the decision if that's the position we're gonna RIF? Or is there another administrator out there that we're gonna RIF, and do we tell them tomorrow if that's the case?
Well,
And
if you're saying we have to RIF somebody, then I have to do it tomorrow, yes.
So I think we just put you in a really awkward position, being very
Yes, that's
reactive.
correct.
There's other people put in an awkward position. There's two people that there's two teachers. There's 6 open positions on a teacher. RIF doesn't mean eliminate, right?
That's correct, but like Mr. Esposito said, it's very difficult because there are no qualifications to bring back an administrator versus a teacher when it's based on numbers. It's a little bit different, so we will state our case and bring it back.
And just for information to Mr. Markham, do you have, what % of the budget is based on administrators?
That's a question I asked 2 weeks ago and didn't get an answer.
It's a good question.
Mr. Markham, while you're thinking about that, can I ask a question of Dr. Grimaud?
Let him answer.
About 1.5 million is our administrative salary and wages.
So it's about 15%
Out of
for
13,
administrators.
out
of
of
the whole
13 million roughly, when you combine our education and operations fund. Some of those administrators are out of the education fund, some of them are out of the operations.
Yes,
Mr.
one position is 10% of the administrators. So the 2 teachers out of 96 was less than 1%.
I mean, take all of my board salary, take it all. I don't give a crap about my board salary, but I don't want to put us in a position where we can't function. And so we have an open positions. I mean, Dave, we're not going to open that up for applications. Is that the position we're going to RIF? Now we put Mr. Lippy in a position where he's the only administrator in that building. It really.
I'd like to make a point of clarification. Mr. Hensley and Mr. Shaw, you made this motion. Were you talking about an administrator in a principal position, or were you talking about a cabinet position?
I'll leave that up to Dr. Grimaud.
I couldn't hear him.
He'll leave it up to
Dr. Grimaud.
So in other words, you guys aren't necessarily saying that it's a principal or a vice principal. You're just saying you want something from the administrative side. Is that a correct statement?
That would be true for me, yes.
So I think that's an easy assumption. So do we go after, not go after, but is it Sue Janegi then? Is it Tony Miller?
That's up to her.
Yeah, that's her. So we just throw this on her lap right now so she can make that decision
It was,
tomorrow.
Bryce, it was in the original plan.
So I'd
All
like to do
we're
what
looking
Rick
for
recommended
is fairness and equity.
It was in the original plan because we were repurposing a building that had an administrator in it and would follow the program.
You know, we talk all the time about wanting to be proactive, and then tonight we were the most reactive I've ever been, I've seen. And
Because of that one thing, Bryce, are you serious? Are you really gonna say that to me after this 2 weeks of what we went through about being reactive? This whole board has been reactive the time I've been on it. You know, when we cut 8 teachers and we're talking about cutting pay to coaches and ECA and we're gonna cut our pay, then I think I want to at least let them look at administration. If I'm running a business, that's what I'm going to do. If I'm on chop value adders, I'm going to kind of look at where we can consolidate administration. We have an open position currently. That's all I know. It was originally presented, and there was a plan behind it to have that position in there. All I'm asking for is that's looked at. If that can't happen and she comes back and we have to do something and you're telling me that can't happen, then we'll vote on it again. You know? But at this point, what I'm trying to do tonight is get done what we need to legally get done want it to stay sold. But that's my number one thing here, is to do what we need to do to buy us some time to get a plan together, a true plan, you know? The whole thing's been reactive.
And very, very uncomfortable. Like I said, we've all stated it. We're a community, and all we're trying to do tonight is get through the legal remedies. And then, we got a guy right here he's a professional. He goes out and saves corporations. And we got another guy sitting right over there that runs corporations. The best idea might be sitting right next to us. I said it in the last meeting. Why aren't we all sitting down at the table and talking about this? All we did tonight was, to Rick's point, we can come back and change it, but we have to give legal notice tonight by July 1. That's all we're trying to do. And we're trying to be fair. It's not fun sitting up here and trying to mess with people's lives, because that's what this cut comes down to. It's not Dr. Grimaud's fault that we've had no leadership here for 5 years. Since she got here, she's been sticking her finger in the dike, trying to stop the leaks, and it's time we all started working together. Anybody else?
Price, did you want to make a motion? If you do, I'll second it.
Yeah, I want to make a motion to, I don't even know what the right word is, but do I say amend your motion, or to take off the table the riff of the administrator, and let's really think about what we're doing?
You would have, we've already voted on that motion. You would have to make a new motion if you would like to.
So moved.
I'll second the motion. Then we can vote. Discussion?
Can you hear us, Rick? Evidently we lost Rick.
May I just make a comment?
Sure.
You are a board that is very, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, please don't think that I am. You are a board that is very demanding, and you want things done yesterday. And if you cut another administrative position, and we're barely keeping our head above water as it is, especially during this time of COVID and trying to do a return to school plan, we're already down one administrator, now you're asking another RIF. I'm going to tell you, it's going to put our people over the top. I'm telling you, we've been working 12, 15-hour days. I am one of those. And I don't know how we will do it with one less person. And I'm just being honest with you. And it's going to affect everybody sitting in here, because if you're talking about somebody that works with discipline, or somebody works with curriculum, or somebody that works with technology, we are barely keeping ahead of what we need to do right now. And everybody sitting here is going to be affected by that. So, don't think that the teachers won't be affected, our administrative team won't be affected. It will put a huge strain on our administrators, our teachers, anybody that needs that support. It will put a huge strain on it. There is no way, if it's a building administrator, especially I look at Dr. Lippy, who has that assistant opening right there, there is no way he can do all those evaluations, do all of that discipline, still be an instructional leader for how many students, Dr. Lippy? 740 students. Do you think he's going to meet all of their needs and all of the teachers' needs? No way. I'm just telling you, because I've been in that position, I've lived it, and I know you're not saying that's the position, but I agree with Mr. Bedke. Which one do you take, especially in a time of crisis right now? Which one do we take?
Well, and I'm going to get more demanding, to be honest with you, because we're going to put a plan together, because I'm not used to doing this and reacting and reacting and reacting and reacting, So Mr. Benke made a motion, I seconded the motion, to take the administrative riff off the thing. Let's vote.
Anybody else got a comment? I'd like a clarification. I thought when we said we were riffing an administrator, it was the open position. Was I mistaken? Are we talking about two?
No, I guess the open position isn't on there anymore.
A RIF is a person that is in a position currently. When you eliminate a position,
That's not the case with all these teachers we just talked about.
right. But they're open. What I'm saying is they're open positions and they're not losing a job per se at this point. But the other two are until we can bring them back. But if you're talking about a RIF and an administrator and you were wanting that assistant principal job, I guess I don't know what you're wanting as a board. You're gonna have to
I
give me
want you to
some
look at
direction.
if there any consolidation opportunity within administration, the same way we're gonna do with eliminating 8 teachers. That's my look as a business person. That's exactly what I'd be looking at. I wouldn't be looking, yeah, volume goes down, you eliminate people, but I'm also gonna look at it. If it's 10%, that's a question I asked 2 weeks ago and never got an answer to. We're typically looking at SG&A in a business at 10%. If you're over that, you're fat up top. You know, school's a little different. I understand that. So I'm not necessarily hung up on that. The reason I put that in there is because we got to do something tonight, right? And we can't sit here and vote no. And I'm not going to get in this vicious circle, you know, of voting and voting and voting. So Bryce made a motion. I seconded it.
And we're discussing it.
Okay, is there any more discussion?
I have a question. If we vote on this and take the administrative riff away, would you agree to hold that position open until we get back the number of students that are actually going to return to school? Is that a possibility, Dr. Lippy? Dr. Grimmel?
No, it's not a possibility.
How
You
can
wouldn't get
he,
anybody.
it would be very difficult for him to start school without that person in place.
Okay.
I think that was my point. It seems hard to determine when or how to bring the person back.
Any other comments, Mr. Esposito or Mr. Shaw?
I mean, my understanding with the motion that was made is that we're talking about one position, including the open position. So if that's the position you choose, that's fine. If you want to riff a different position and hire someone into that position, that's fine too. Talking about one position from last year to this year.
No more phone calls.
Mr. Bedke? Any other comment? Mr. Hensley?
Ready to vote.
If I could share one more comment, how many employees are considered administrators?
Ruth is on the phone. She texted me once she commented.
So just put her up the mic.
Ruth, I've got you on speaker, and so I'm going to put you up to the microphone. This is Ruth Ayers, she called. There you go, Ruth. You'll have to shut the audio off behind you, and then you can talk. I got you on the speakerphone.
Is the board still talking, or was I behind?
You're behind, so you're live right now.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry, I just got out of a meeting and went onto YouTube. And so what I caught and what I think you are discussing is to riff an administrator position. Am I correct in my understanding that this is the motion on the table?
No, that motion has already been passed.
It's to undo the riff of the administrator.
It was already riffed earlier in this meeting, and now they're discussing to turn that over. Am I correct on?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm really sorry to come in, but it is something that I feel super strongly about. So I don't know where we are in the discussion, but I think that it is extremely necessary that we keep that administrative position because of the amount of work and of the amount of just the unknown that, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get home. There's just already so many demands being placed on our administrators. I feel extremely strongly that we should keep that administrative position. So I don't know if we're ready to vote, if we're in the middle of discussion. Is somebody able to catch me where we are? And I believe I am able to vote, right? Because we're still in COVID. And so I would have a vote since I'm technically calling into the meeting.
That's correct.
To be clear, the administrative, we passed a motion to cut board pay by 10%, to leave the 6 positions open, RIF 2 teachers, am I stating that correctly?
Yes, you're correct.
And to RIF an administrator in the cabinet. We didn't specify who or what position, we just wanted one from that side. We voted and passed it, and now we have a motion on the table from Mr. Bedke and seconded by Mr. Hensley to remove the RIF for the administrative side.
Okay,
Did I say
so
that right?
I'm just going to say it back because it's really garbled and it's so important that I understand. The motion on the table by made by Mr. Bedke is that we do not RIF the administrative position, correct? Or that we reinstate it?
That's incorrect. We did not pick a position. We just said somebody on her cabinet or staff. Somebody from central office, is that a better way to put it, Teresa?
No, it's just an administrator. It could be cabinet, it could be building administrator.
Whoever she decides. Are you there, Ruth?
Yeah, I'm having a really hard time so have you already voted? Is that what you're saying, or you're getting ready to vote?
We're getting ready to vote. We have not voted. The motion on the table is to remove the RIF of an administrator. It's been moved by myself, Bryce, and seconded by Mike. And we've just had discussion, and we're getting, I hope, close to vote.
So we're ready to vote. Am I able to vote?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to wait for the call to vote. Bryce, I can hear you. I couldn't hear when other people were talking.
Okay, I'm going to call the vote unless there's any other comment. Okay, Bryce, go ahead and get Ruth's vote, please.
So Ruth, how do you vote?
I want to keep the administrator, so is that a yes?
That would be a yes.
Okay.
Mr. Bedke?
Yes.
Mr. Hensley?
Abstain.
Mr. Shaw?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. What was?
The motion is to remove the RIF of an administrator. And we have 2 yeses and an abstention.
Thank you. No.
Rick?
Yes. Yes.
We got it, Rick.
No. So you got 2 noes. What is did Rick, I'm sorry, what did Rick vote?
3 yeses, 1 abstain, and 2 noes.
Okay, we got 3 yeses, 2 noes, and 1 abstention.
So the vote passes.
So it looks like it passes to remove the RIF for the administrator. Any other board comments? Any other motions?
I'd like a strategic plan by July 4th. Some semblance of it. If you guys can't put it together, then we'll do it through the paper or something. I abstain there because I understand the need for administrator. But at the same time, we need to start thinking long-term on this board and with this administration. And we need to start, you know, it's just like that building out there. There's some things we can be doing, and it just seems like this victim mentality is creeped into every facet of life, you know? So I'm gonna go along with the administrator, and I understand the need. I struggled with that today, trying to figure out where you'd cut, right? But you know, we need to grow this. We need to grow MCS, and that's not just to you, Teresa. You know, you came into this. We have been dealing with a lot that's happened in the past. Those seeds were sown a long time ago, but at the same time, you know, I think the biggest thing that we need is a vision about where we're going, I don't even know where we are sometimes, to be honest with you. Where are we taking this school corporation, and the plan, an exact plan on how to get there? And I think that's involves everybody in here. There's simple tools we can use to do this. So that's my comment.
So Mike, I 100% agree with you. The thing that I really struggle with, one of the things I struggle with this board, is you just say, by July 4th, I want this. Dave writes an email and says, I want this. We never discussed, as a board, we should collectively say, by July 4th, we want this. It's not about what you want or I want. It's about what we want collectively. And for us to all individually make demands on our administration is not appropriate.
No, that's personal. That's coming personal for me because I sat here for 7 or 8 months and talked
So how
about
do you
a
want
strategic
Teresa
plan.
to take that? That's an order, she does it, or?
No, it's a request.
Okay, so I think as a board though, we have to submit requests together and aligned, not individually.
I just did it in a public
That
meeting.
would require some communication.
Okay, Dave, wrap this up.
Between board members. Everybody talks about roles and protocols and all this. Let me ask you a question. What have we gotten accomplished in the last 18 months besides bicker? We need to start, and I've said it 100 times, and I'm willing to. You know, you send out an email and you get with ideas, and you get no response. Now, part of that's because of the legal, because you can't have an electronic meeting. I suggested this 7 months ago. When an email comes out, why aren't we responding to the president and letting the president instead of all these individuals? Because this is exactly what it leads to right here. We need to start working together. There's a professional, there's another professional over there that can help lead us through this.
And Dave, you're
you're one of them. Look at the talent in this room. And we walk into a meeting, I'm pissed. We walked into a meeting last Wednesday, we get $1.5 million dropped in our lap. You need to make these cuts, you need to react. Then there's another plan, and we need to react.
Let's have this offline then. So.
Adjourned.